Hello! It's been a while since I did an update on my branching dialogue tool, so figured I might as well do it. With everything that's been going on in the world, it's been a little hard to get updates regularly out for this, but I have been working on it, and I want to show you a bit of what I've been working on. So we'll just open up our node editor window, drag in the test dialog tree, and I've reset it to its bare bones, so we'll be able to start from scratch in all of this. And immediately, you'll see that the info node has been updated. So the info node has a speaker name. Mr. Tutorial is still here, and that's been the same as always, but we also have a speaker object now. So this is a game object that the user can assign, and it will be used for example if the user has a camera and they want the camera to focus on whoever's speaking at the moment, then the user will just be able to call the function in the branching dialog tool that gets the speaker object, and then they can get the transform and position from there. So that's hopefully something that's going to be really useful to users. Another thing I'm hoping is useful is the speaker sprite. So it's really popular for a lot of dialogue to have the character image next to the text that's being displayed for a couple different games. I say it's very popular, but it's just something I wanted to include. And I don't have an image for the red box of Mr. Tutorial, so we could set it to any kind of sprite here and it works. But we'll just leave it blank for now. So that's the info node. We can see as I right click, there's a whole bunch of new nodes here. And I'll try to go through all of them as fast as I can. Try to keep this video under 10 minutes. So first off, the comment node. This is more or less self-explanatory. I just wanted a place for the user to be able to write comments to themselves. So let's just start off with a start and an end node. And I want to first talk about variables, because I'm extremely proud of the variables that I've created for this project. So if we right click and enter a variable node, you can see that we have a variable here, and it starts as a literal value because I wanted the user to be able to have literal values like 12 and whatever that number is, and it saves between it saves locally to the variable, so they don't have to retype anything in case they misclick. But these variables are stored locally to the branching dialog tree. So if we click on the tree itself, we can see I've already created a variable here, and its name is orange, and has an option for persist after play, and I won't get into that right now. But every variable also has 4 values. So it has Boolean value, integer, float, and string. So I really wanted to give the user the most amount of control as possible in all of this, so I wanted to give them all these different variables. So for example, they could say oranges. Well, yes, oranges. And let's say that there are 6 oranges. Oranges are $12.99 and they're being sold by Holly. So just in one variable, the user can get all of this information down, which I'm really happy with. Of course, the user might not use it for all of this. They might make 20,000 variables with who knows what kind of information they'll use in them. That's the point. It's so open and dynamic. The user can do anything. Speaking of creating nodes, it's really easy to create another one. Boom, I just did it. And I'll call this one apples, and I'll set apples to 2. And we don't have to worry about any of this stuff either. So it's been that easy to create variables. And here at the variable node, if you chose literal value, then you can see oranges and apples are created here. Also the option to keep value after play. But the user cannot edit these variable values in the variable node. So you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe I want to edit those, so how do I do that? You have the edit variable node. So what this node does is it takes in logic, just like this, and it takes in variables. So I'll put in oranges here. And what this does is it takes a variable type. I'll just choose like integer, for example. And we have a whole bunch of different equations that we can do. So you have your basics. I'll just choose a plus b. So set a using a plus b. So what happens here is I'll do a as oranges, b as 1. And if I played this, I won't for the sake of time, but you'll be able to see as it flows through, oranges with a value of 6 gets added by 1 and becomes 7. So this edit variable node is really powerful. It works for pretty much anything. I could, for string values, for example, I have set2. You can concatenate at the end, or I have the ability for the user to remove certain strings from the host. So I'm really happy with that. Who knows if this is useful to the user? I'm just kind of adding a whole bunch of functionality that I'm hoping people would want. Boolean, fairly simple. Integers and floats are the same thing in terms of what we're editing. So really happy with how this all turned out. And you can see just like the literals, it saved the value there, so I don't have to go back and forth between adding a bunch of stuff. So that's the variables. I won't show too much of that anymore because I want to show off the logic node. So the logic node is really, really great. So I'll have oranges, I'll plug this in A, and it works the same as the edit variable, with the exception being that now these are your if and or statements. So we'll go to integer again, and we'll say, okay, well, is A equal to B? Is A not equal to B? It has all these different equations, and you can see that we have true and false nodes coming out of this. Boolean has equals, not equals, and an or. String has just equals and not equals. But I'll create another variable here. Plug apples into that. Oh, and also to keep value after play, I forgot to mention that. So that's where the edit variable comes into play as well. So if you're editing, like I said before, oranges plus 1, 6 becomes 7 over here. If persist after play was on, the 7 would stay. I don't know why the user would want that, but it was a bug that I found out when I was first creating these variables, and I fixed it. And then I thought, well, some user might want that, so I went back and added it as a feature. So that's what this keep value after play is used for. But anyway, going back to the logic, so this pretty much works as you would expect. It's the logic node. So let's go ahead and add some dialogue here so we can see it in action. So I'll say, hey, is, what do we have? 6 and 2. Is 6 greater than 2? And if that's true, 2 dialogue nodes. If it's true, then yeah. If it's not true, then nah. I'll link these into the end as well. So integer, is 6 greater than 2? Is A greater than B? We'll press play here. Hello there, Mr. Tutorial. How's it going? Hey, is 6 greater than 2? Yeah, it is. And we can do the same thing. Also, this is just a visual bug. It works the exact same. But if we switch this around, and now we're not going to change the dialogue, but we're basically asking, is 2 greater than 6? Nah, it's not. Mr. Tutorial knows what's up. So the logic node, and for that brief amount of testing, just trust me that it works. But the logic node's there, and it also has a place for literals, so you don't have to create a whole new variable or have another variable node in there just to use literals. So the next thing I want to talk about here is inline dialogue replacements, because branching dialogue is cool and all that, but now that we have variables, you want to use those variables places. So I'm just going to copy this from a notepad I have off screen, and it says, hello, var global. I might be thinking, var global, are there global variables? Yes, there is. So I have a prefab that I created called the info holder, and it contains global variables that the user might want. So here is the character name variable, has the same values as everything else, and I've just set the string here to Zithaniel. But in a full game, the user could make the integer value health, float value, the money or gold amount that they have. So there really is a whole bunch of possibilities for the user to do whatever they want with this. But going back to the dialog tree, so hello, I'm using curly braces to encompass everything that is a variable. So it's var global character name, so that's the name of the variables. So we're looking at global variables, name of the variable, and then string. So this is referencing the string value of the character name. So this is going to be Nathaniel. So hello, Nathaniel. My name is var speaker name. You might be wondering, well, speaker name doesn't have anything at the end there. Like, what is it referencing? Well, speaker name is a special info or a special variable that I specially created to call from the speaker name in the info node. So this way, the user doesn't have to track that information themselves, and they can just pull from it whenever they want, because this is going to be something that I expect would be fairly often used. So I don't want to limit the user and have them, make a solution for themselves. And then I was wondering, is var oranges int? So we're looking at the integer value of the local variable oranges, which is 6. Is 6 greater than 1? Just make that consistent. So as we hit play, we can see it works. So hello, Nathaniel. My name is Mr. Tutorial. I was wondering, is 6 greater than 1? Yeah, it is. You know what's up, Mr. Tutorial. And that's it really for inline character replacements, inline dialogue replacement. It has a ton of possibilities. It's basically the sky's the limit for the user. But since we're coming up with, making this a very long video, I want to try to wrap up this last thing that I want to talk about, which is the new speaker node. So this is more or less the exact same thing as an info node, except this has the ability to replace information. So I'll just change the speaker's name here to Joe. Make another dialogue. And we'll say, hey, call me, and then var speaker name. And if you hit play, yeah, hey, call me Joe now. Sure thing, Joe. So what this does, and the meaning behind this, is if the user has a bunch of one-liners of characters coming in and saying stuff during a really large branching dialogue, I don't want them to have to jump around to other dialogue trees, play with different start notes and stuff like that. So with here, they'd be able to change the speaker name, the speaker sprite, the object, and stuff like that. So they wouldn't have to create a whole bunch of branching dialogue tools or custom dialogue or anything for specific scenarios. Now this does keep the speaker name for the rest of the logic. So if we play again, you'll see that he's still Mr. Tutorial, but it's after this logic flow that Mr. Tutorial becomes Joe. So if the user restarts somewhere, it'll still be Mr. Tutorial at the beginning. But that's the one limitation to this new speaker node. So with that, I hope I haven't completely bored you to death. This has been a ton of information. It's been almost a month and a half since my last snapshot, so I'm sorry for not updating as much. The world life has been crazy, but I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I think it's becoming a really, really good tool for users, and I'm excited to eventually release this on the Unity Asset Store, so keep an eye out for that. And thanks for watching. Remember to contact me if you have any questions.